The 03 Zero Darkness at RAF Thorpe Abbotts is not silent. It is a thick, damp presence, smelling of wet Norfolk soil, high-octane aviation fuel, and the faint, bitter tang of stale coffee. Rain drums a relentless cold tattoo on the curved metal roofs of the Nissen huts. This is the realm of the ground crews, the forgotten shift that prepares the war. Staff Sergeant Frank Malone, crew chief for the 351st Squadron's armament section, works by the dim yellow glow of a shielded floodlight. His hands, raw and split, are stained permanently black with grease and solvent. He doesn't feel the cold in his fingers anymore. He is checking the action of a 50 caliber Browning M2, the starboard waist gun of a B17G nicknamed Rosie's Riveters. His breath plumes in the frigid air as he cycles the bolt. He isn't following a checklist. He is listening. He is feeling. He listens for the snick of the extractor, the solid thunk of the bolt seating home. To Malone, this machine is not just government property. It is a living, breathing, and deeply temperamental creature. He trusts the feel of the metal, the precise tension of the feed purl spring under his thumb, more than any technical manual. The bombers, parked in their dozens on the hard stands, are sleeping giants, inert and dead. In 3 hours, they will be filled with young men and rise into the stratosphere. For now, in this quiet, metallic-smelling hour, they belong only to the mechanics. Malone finds a microscopic burr on an ammunition feed guide, a tiny imperfection that would pass any official inspection. He retrieves a small file from his pocket and, with the care of a watchmaker, smooths the metal until it is flawless. A detail that feels off, but isn't yet a clear and present danger. At 14:20, the silence is gone, replaced by the staggered, coughing roar of returning engines. Rosie's Riveters lumbers back to her hard stand, a ghost emerging from the low clouds. She is scarred. The entire starboard side of the fuselage, from the waist to the tail, is peppered with the distinctive, ragged 20mm holes of a Luftwaffe fighter. The gunner, a 19-year-old technical sergeant from Brooklyn named Kid Jankowski, tumbles out of the waist door, his face pale beneath the grime. He throws his fleece-lined helmet onto the tarmac, shaking with a mixture of profound cold and pure, unadulterated rage. Malone is already there, his practiced eyes scanning the damage. "Frank!" Jankowski yells, his voice hoarse. "The goddamn gun! It jammed. Froze solid just as he came in for the pass. He just sat there, Frank, just sat there and hosed us." Malone feels a cold knot in his stomach. "I checked it myself, kid. The headspace was perfect. The belt was clean." Jankowski yanks off his thick gloves, revealing fingers white with incipient frostbite. "Perfect on the ground, don't cut it at 25. Jour 0 feet. That gun is a coffin." Malone climbs into the fuselage. The smell of cordite, ozone, and spilled hydraulic fluid is overpowering. He finds the M2. The belt of ammunition is still half-fed. He grabs the charging handle. It's stiff, resistant, but it cycles. On the ground, in the warm English air, it works. But up there, in the 40-degree slipstream, where the air is a razor and the metal is brittle, it failed. This isn't a simple stoppage. The debriefing rooms are filled with identical reports. Gunner reports stoppage, mechanism frozen. This is a ghost in the machine, an invisible enemy that is killing them. What he doesn't know is that this specific, infuriating failure will spark an idea that will change the air war over Germany. The year is 1944. The strategic bombing campaign against the Third Reich is reaching its bloody crescendo. The United States 8th Air Force dispatches over 1,000 B-17 flying fortresses into German skies daily, and daily they are met by a skilled and desperate Luftwaffe. The B-17 is a masterpiece of defensive armament, designed to be a self-defending battleship of the sky with 13 50 caliber M2 Browning machine guns. But a critical, systematic flaw is emerging, documented in field reports from Air Technical Service Command. Subject: M2 stoppages, high-altitude operations. The problem is a brutal collision of physics. At a cruising altitude of 25,000 feet, the ambient temperature plummets to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, sometimes 50 degrees over the target. This extreme cold has three catastrophic effects. First, thermal contraction. The precision-milled steel of the gun's receiver, the heavy bolt, the brass of the cartridge casings, and the steel of the ammunition links all shrink, but at critically different rates. Tolerance is measured in 10,000ths of an inch on a temperate airfield in England, become binding friction or fatal gaps over Berlin. Second, lubrication. Standard gun oil, designation CLP40, congeals. It turns from a slick lubricant into a thick, sticky paste, robbing the bolt of the velocity it needs to cycle at its designed 800 rounds per minute. The bolt fails to fully return, the extractor fails to grab the next round, and the gun falls silent. Third, the human element. The gunner, encased in a cumbersome, electrically heated fleece suit, thick sheepskin gloves, and a claustrophobic oxygen mask, has his dexterity reduced to that of a clumsy bear. Clearing a Type 1 stoppage, a failure to feed, becomes a desperate, near-impossible battle against a frozen, inert lump of steel. This mechanical failure is not a statistic on a report. It is a death sentence. When a waste gun goes silent, it tears a 90-degree hole in the B-17's vaunted cone of fire. Luftwaffe fighter pilots, veterans of this grim aerial geometry, know exactly where to strike. They call this vulnerability the Totwinkel, the dead angle. They queue up, safe from the silent gun, and pour 20mm cannon fire into the vulnerable fuselage, targeting the wing roots and the cockpit. The after-action reports from the 100th Bomb Group, the Bloody 100th, read like eulogies penned in mechanical jargon. Aircraft 42-3004, Rosie's Riveters, observed under attack from 4 o'clock low. Starboard waist gunner did not return fire. Aircraft seen to fall out of formation at 14:32 minus starboard wing. No parachutes observed. The empty bunks in the Nissen huts, the personal effects quietly packed into footlockers, are a testament to the problem. Young men, most barely 20 years old, are being lost not just to enemy fire, but because a piece of metal contracted by cold failed to move half an inch. The experts at the Armament Research Division at Wright Field propose complex, long-term solutions: new electric heating blankets for the gun breeches, experimental graphite-based lubricants that won't freeze. These are months, even years, away from deployment. For the crews flying tomorrow, the official response is hopeless. The consensus from armament officers is clear. The M2 Browning is a sound, proven design. The problem is the environment, and you cannot fix the sky. Experts agreed. It couldn't be done. Staff Sergeant Frank Malone is not an engineer. He is 28, a relative old man compared to the flight crews he serves. He comes from the flat, windswept farmland outside Des Moines, Iowa. His world was never slide rules, blueprints, or theories of thermodynamics. His world was the stubborn grit of a busted John Deere transmission, the peculiar whine of a failing water pump, the challenge of making a worn-out hay baler last one more season. He learned mechanics by touch, by sound, and by an intuitive, almost spiritual, connection to the machines he worked on. He could diagnose a failing engine by the taste of the oil on his finger. He joined the Army Air Corps in 1942, not from a burning sense of patriotism, but from a quiet, agricultural sense of duty. Things break, you fix them. It was that simple. The Army, recognizing his almost preternatural diagnostic skill, they passed the standard training and made him a crew chief, then an armament specialist. He carries a small, grease-stained notebook, filled not with formulas, but with intricate pencil sketches of feed-pile linkages, extractor claws, and his own hand-drawn modifications. His direct superior, a 22-year-old lieutenant from MIT named Davies, fundamentally distrusts him. Malone doesn't talk about engineering tolerances or metallurgic stress. He talks about giving the metal room to breathe. This background gives him a perspective no engineer possesses. He doesn't see the M2 Browning as a sacred, perfect design. He sees it as just another complex machine that is failing to do its job in a cold, unforgiving field. The idea is born from watching failure. Close up. It is 2 days after Rosie's near-fatal mission. Malone is in the armorer's shack, a drafty, unheated tin hut that smells of Hops No. 9 solvent and damp wood. He has asked Kid Jankowski to help him with an experiment. He has a bench-mounted M2. "Put it all on, kid," he says. Jankowski sighs and suits up. The heavy fleece-lined jacket and pants, the thick sheepskin gloves, the dangling oxygen mask. Malone motions to the gun. "It's jammed. Clear it." Jankowski fumbles with the standard-issue combination wrench, a short, flat, 6-inch piece of steel. It's the only tool issued for clearing severe stoppages. The gunner's gloved hand, clumsy and thick, cannot get a firm grip on the charging handle's lug. The wrench slips off. He tries again, his breath fogging. "Damn it, Frank, it's no good, it's too small. You can't get any leverage, not with these damn gloves on." Malone watches not the gun, but the gunner's wrist. He sees the awkward, inefficient angle. The problem isn't the gun's mechanism. It's not the gunner's strength. It is the tool. The tool is wrong. Suddenly, Malone grabs a spare combination wrench from a toolbox. He lights the shop's acetylene torch, the flame hissing blue and white. Lieutenant Davies, making his rounds, steps into the hut. "What in blazes are you doing, Sergeant?" Malone holds the end of the wrench in the flame until it glows cherry red. "Just an idea, sir." He moves to the heavy bench vise, locks the hot wrench in its jaws, and with a heavy ball-peen hammer gives the tool a single, sharp, 30-degree bend right below the head. Davies is appalled. That is wanton destruction of government-issued property, Malone. You've ruined a calibrated tool. Malone ignores him, quenching the bent wrench in a bucket of dirty water. Steam hisses. He hands the new, strangely shaped tool to Jankowski. Try now. The gunner grips it. The bend is perfect. It allows his wrist to remain straight, clearing the bulky fuselage wall and transferring 100% of his arm's force directly to the charging handle. It gives him leverage. That, Jankowski says, his voice full of surprise, that might just work. Davies shakes his head in disgust. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's non-regulation. I don't want to see that thing on this airfield again. Malone waits for the officer to leave. He looks at Jankowski and slips the bent wrench into the gunner's fleece-lined boot. Keep it quiet. The test cannot be official. It cannot be documented. Lieutenant Davies has made it clear. Any airman found with non-regulation or field-modified equipment is grounds for a court-martial, and the mechanic responsible will be right beside him. But this is a conspiracy of survival, a secret pact between the man on the ground and the man in the air. The night before the next mission, a supposed milk run to a coastal target in France, Malone and Jankowski meet in the black shadow of Rosie's riveter's wing. The pervasive Norfolk fog swallows the sound of their voices, casting the entire airfield in a spectral, diffused light. They work by the dim, illicit glow of a red-lensed flashlight. They don't have a high-altitude test chamber. They must improvise. Malone has borrowed a canister of CO2 from the flight line's firefighting stores. He aims the nozzle at the breech of the starboard waist gun and blasts the steel, flash-freezing the receiver, the bolt, and the feed cover. A thick white crust of frost instantly blooms over the weapon. "Okay, kid," Malone whispers. "Try it now. Make it jam." Jankowski, wearing his thickest flying gloves, slams the charging handle forward. The gun is frozen solid. The bolt refuses to move, stuck halfway. It's jammed, Frank, stuck tight, just like over Bremen. He fumbles for the standard-issue wrench. He can't get it to seat on the handle's lug. His gloved fingers slip off the frozen steel. The red light reflects his growing frustration. It's no use. "Now try the other one." Malone hands him the bent wrench. The custom angle is the key. It allows Jankowski to slide the tool's head flush against the fuselage wall, getting a perfect, solid purchase on the lug. He plants his boot against the bulkhead and puts his entire weight into it. There is a loud, terrifying crack as the ice shatters and the frozen oil gives way. The bolt slides back with a clean, beautiful clack-clack. Jankowski cycles it again, smooth. He looks at Malone, his eyes wide and bright above where his oxygen mask would sit. "It works, Frank. It bloody works. The milk run to France is a failure for the new tool because nothing goes wrong. The weather is clear, the Luftwaffe doesn't show, and the guns fire perfectly. The real test comes 2 days later. The target, a vital aircraft factory near Leipzig. The 100th Bomb Group is flying high, but the yellow-nosed fighters of JG-1 are up in force. Over the target, just as the flak begins to pound the formation, Jankowski's voice crackles on the intercom, sharp with panic. "Starboard waist, jammed! Bandits, 4 o'clock low!" On the ground at Thorpe Abbott's, Frank Malone listens to the tower radio, monitoring the mission's progress. His stomach is a cold knot of dread. In the vibrating, freezing fuselage of Rosie's riveters, Jankowski is fighting the 200 milliv slipstream. The air is 42 degrees. He can't feel his fingers. He rips the bent wrench from its tether on his boot. He doesn't need to feel. The tool is shaped to his glove, an extension of his will. He hooks the charging handle, plants his foot against the bulkhead, and pulls. The stoppage clears. He shoves the ammo belt back into the feed tray. Just as he cocks the gun, an FW-190, its engine cowling painted bright yellow, curves in for the kill, its wing roots already blinking with 20mm cannon fire. Jankowski squeezes the butterfly trigger. The 50 cal barks back to life, a violent, hammering roar. The stream of tracers, 1 in 5, reaches out and stitches across the 190's engine. The German plane instantly belches black smoke, falters, and cartwheels away. The intercom is silent for a beat. Then Jankowski's voice, breathless and giddy. "Gun clear! Gun clear! Thanks, Frank!" When Rosie's riveters lands, battered but whole, Jankowski is the first one out. He finds Malone by the hardstand. He doesn't say a word. He just holds up the bent wrench covered in grease and frost. Malone nods. The theory is proven. It's no longer an idea, it's a solution. If stories like this fascinate you, stay with us. The next chapter of wartime innovation might surprise you. The miracle tool does not stay secret for long. The other gunners on Rosie's crew saw it in action. Within a day, 3 other armament NCOs are in Malone's shed with pliers, a vise, and a torch. "Show us how you did it, Frank." By the end of the week, half the starboard waist gunners in the 351st Squadron have a Malone wrench tucked in their boot. The problem is, Lieutenant Davies, the fastidious, by-the-book armament officer notices. He finds one of the non-reg tools during a spot inspection of a B17 returning from a mission. He is furious. He convenes an informal tribunal in the group operations room. Present are Malone, the group armament officer, a pragmatic major named Hayes, and himself. A single, fire-bent, grease-stained wrench sits on the green felt of the briefing table. "Sergeant Malone," Davies begins, his voice tight and controlled, "you have willfully ignored a direct order. You have encouraged the destruction of government property and, worse, introduced a non-standard, unvetted tool into a combat aircraft. This compromises uniformity and established safety protocols. What do you have to say for yourself?" Malone stands at ease, his hands clasped behind his back. He's a mechanic, not a debater. He looks at Major Hayes. "Sir, the standard wrench is a safety protocol, and it's failing. It's failing because it was designed for a man in a T-shirt in a warm garage, not for a gunner at 25,000 feet who can't feel his hands." He steps forward and, without asking permission, picks up the bent wrench. "This tool works. I've seen it. Sergeant Jankowski has used it. It clears a Type 1 stoppage in under 5 seconds with gloves on. The standard tool takes 30 seconds if they're lucky. In 30 seconds, sir, an FW-190 makes 3 firing passes." Davies scoffs. "You're not an engineer, Sergeant. You have no idea what long-term stress this tool might be putting on the bolt assembly or the charging handle linkage." "I know what a 20mm cannon shell does to a fuselage, sir," Malone says quietly. "And I know Sergeant Jankowski and his crew are alive because of this. Sir, we're not modifying the gun. We're modifying the wrench. If the regulations are getting crews killed, then the regulations are wrong. Major Hayes, who has been silent, leans forward. He looks at the wrench, then at Malone. He picks it up, feels its weight, its strange, pragmatic balance. He nods, just once, and slides it back across the table to Malone. See that all my armament NCOs get the specifications, Sergeant. Dismissed. The meeting provides tacit approval, but the true large-scale test is yet to come. The one the title promises, Berlin, February 3rd, 1945. Big B. It is the most heavily defended target on Earth, a city ringed by over 1,000 heavy flak guns. The 100th Bomb Group is assigned to the High Squadron, the exposed coffin corner of the vast bomber stream. The air is crystal clear, perfect for the bombers, but also perfect for the Luftwaffe, which rises in force, including the new Me-262 jets. As the formation approaches the target, a wave of FW-190s, the Sturmgruppe, heavily armored for head-on attacks, appears at 12 o'clock high. They dive, guns blazing. The squadron lead B17, Miss B. Havin, shudders violently. The pilot's voice, tight with fear, cuts over the command frequency. Ball turret is hit, gunner is wounded, and the guns are jammed. A jammed gun on the lead ship is a tactical disaster. It breaks the cone of fire that protects the entire 12-plane box. A savvy 190 pilot, seeing the silent turret, peels off from the main attack, lining up for a devastating, belly-raking run on the command ship. If the lead ship goes down, the entire squadron will scatter. But the ball gunner, a T-sergeant named Cody, though wounded in the leg, has his Malone wrench. He's upside down, cramped, bleeding, and fighting panic. He grabs the tool, it's tethered to his wrist with a leather thong, and hooks the charging handle of his right-hand gun. He can't get leverage with his arms. He uses his good leg to kick the wrench. The stoppage clears. He does the same for the left gun. He squeezes the triggers. Both 50 cals explode back to life, tracers lancing out and forcing the 190 to break hard, diving through the formation without firing a single shot. The integrity of the squadron is saved. The lead ship, protected, guides them through the black wall of flak. The 100th drops its bomb squarely on the target and, against all odds, makes it home. In the debrief, the squadron commander, a full colonel, makes a point to find Malone, who is waiting by the hardstands. He doesn't say a word. He just pulls a cigar from his flight jacket and hands it to the mechanic. That night, an order comes down from Group HQ. All armament NCOs to report to Sergeant Malone for instruction on tool modification. The Malone wrench is never given an official designation. It never appears in an Army Air Corps technical manual or receives a TO number. There is no production contract let to a factory in Ohio. Its legacy is one of operational osmosis. It simply becomes part of the kit. It is a piece of folk engineering, an innovation born of pure necessity and spread by word of mouth, from one greasy-handed mechanic to another. Armourers from the 100th transferred to other bomb groups to share their combat experience, take the design with them, the 95th, the 388th, the 390th. Soon, mechanics all over the 8th Air Force are visiting the motor pool, finding a torch and bending their wrenches. It is a ghost in the official record, post-war analysis of high-altitude gunnery performance notes a marked decline in non-combat-related stoppages during the first quarter of 1945. This improvement is officially attributed to improved crew training and the widespread use of new low-temperature lubricants. The contribution of a simple bent piece of steel, forged in a Nissan hut, is never quantified, never mentioned. Staff Sergeant Frank Malone is awarded a Bronze Star for meritorious service, his citation vaguely praising his sustained ingenuity in maintaining combat readiness of his squadron's armament. After VE Day, he is honorably discharged, catches a troopship home, and returns to Iowa. He opens a tractor repair shop. He rarely, if ever, speaks of the war. He goes back to fixing the machines he understands, his hands once again covered in the black grease of a different, more peaceful field. The bent wrench, an object that saved countless lives, fades into the obscurity of things that simply work. The story of the bent wrench is not unique. It is the universal story of human innovation. It is the story of the field-expedient armor, gypsy racks, welded to the outside of Sherman tanks by shipyard workers to defeat German Panzerfausts. It is the story of the K-ration chocolate bar, D-ration, so notoriously hard that GIs learned to grate it and boil it into a hot cocoa. It is the story of the CO2 scrubbers on Apollo 13, built from cardboard, plastic bags, and duct tape by engineers who refused to accept the impossible. True ingenuity is rarely born in a sterile laboratory, from a committee or a focus group. It is born at the point of failure. It is the human mind, under ultimate pressure, refusing to accept the official answer. We look to complex systems for our modern solutions, to algorithms, to artificial intelligence, to massive bureaucratic white papers. But history teaches us again and again that the most profound changes often come from the simplest tools, modified by a single observant mind that understands the real problem. The problem was not the gun, it was the glove. The solution was not a new alloy, it was a new angle. The Nissan huts at Thorpe Abbotts are gone now. Their curved metal long since salvaged, the land returned to agriculture, but the runway remains, a massive concrete scar on the green landscape. It stands as a silent witness to the thousands of young men who took off from that spot, trusting their lives to machines that were, in the end, kept flying by the quiet, defiant genius of men like Frank Malone. Every great idea begins as an act of defiance against impossibility. What impossible ideas do you think could change the world?